because so much has been done, and it's just like, God, where can you even go from here?
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's true. It's very true. And I mean, like, especially when you have our one man band, you know what I mean? When you're doing it all yourself, it kind of
Yeah.
like, it makes things more difficult, but at the same time, you have such a cool creative control that you can do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah, and especially when the tools we have as musicians at our disposal are so accessible. Some you can get for free and they're pretty good, and some you don't have to pay all that much for, and you can get a great product that you would otherwise be paying thousands and thousands of dollars for the physical version of that thing, as opposed to now you can get it for $100 and something, drop it into Logic, and it's the software that does the same thing, and
Yeah.
it's easy to use, it's well laid out. So now it's like you almost have no excuse not to write something awesome because everyone's got a MacBook. So everyone's got that big studio with the desk that otherwise everyone else would have to get a record deal to get into.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that makes it a beautiful thing for us to be able to have that independence, like we talked about last time. But it's cool to see
Totally.
it not being a hindrance at the same time, because I noticed that, like, when I was doing solo stuff, I overdid it. I put way too many instruments, and I wouldn't be able to say, like, no, that's, you can't put that in, you know? So
Oh
I
yeah.
always found
It,
that to be the hardest.
it's so easy to do that, especially the only thing that keeps me from doing that, the one thing is that I do everything on a MacBook, and a MacBook can only handle so much CPU
Yeah.
usage. So I'm always like, and I drained my wallet on this thing, so it's just like, man, I really don't want to overheat it by using like 40,000 plugins. So it's just like, okay, I can only have I have to limit every track I make to like 20 tracks.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. And like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why I killed my MacBook. Was just like
I know
overdoing
that's
it hard.
well, and that's another thing too is Apple is very much the dominant computer, I think, in the music industry for
Mm,
most people,
yeah.
not always. But and if one thing goes wrong on your Apple computer, the whole thing's got to go in. You can't just swap out a part.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I had well, it's funny enough, I had a 27-inch iMac forever. And then the
Yeah.
motherboard fried, but somehow I got to keep the hard drive and have all my songs, so I didn't lose anything. But it just like transferred into a desk, like a little MacBook. So I went from like this massive screen to like this tiny little laptop. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself anymore. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and producing on a laptop, producing your own music, I guess if you start doing that, it's not so bad. But people have said to me like, "Man, how are you okay with having such a tiny screen?" And it's just like, well,
Get
I'm
used
kind
to
of
it.
not. I would like to have a giant screen to be able to do all this stuff.
Yeah, no.
But
Yeah, I just spent most of my day just squinting at it. Ah.
yeah,
Right?
even with my glasses on, I still squint at it for hours.
Right? I have.
Everything's so small.
It's so true. Us blind people, we they don't understand what it's like to look at a screen.
Oh yeah, if I take these off, like I feel like I'm almost legally blind. It's brutal.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. It's just big colors and blurs. It's enjoyable,
Yeah,
especially when I'm performing, because I don't have to see anything. It's just lights and colors. I'm like, this is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. You can just feel the music and hear what you're doing.
Yeah, you don't
It's
have
like
to.
closing your eyes when you play.
Yeah, except for your eyes are wide open. Yeah, no, it's so true. So how many songs are on this release coming up?
There's about 8 tracks. So I released what? I released three
Yeah, I
as
was gonna say
singles.
three, I think.
Um, a couple of them are actually old tracks that I released on my first demo EP. Um, so there's some tracks that some people might have heard, like two of them, that got a new face, and they sound much more full. They're a little more dense in terms of the mixing. It's mixed way better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and all the guitar tones and the bass tones and the drums, everything is just much um, everything's just much cleaner, more finished sounding, and it just sounds really nice. And yeah, that's 8 tracks, and that's it's a pretty straightforward album. It's about 31 minutes. I think I added up all the timestamps. It just qualifies as an album. I think an album is like it's either 6 songs or half an hour of music.
Yeah, I'm not too sure that the.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, is the Britishman here? I hear some excitement. Oh, he is. You get to meet Dale. We're gonna say good morning to Dale.
Good
Or
morning.
good evening.
Or
Yeah,
good
good
evening.
evening. Yes, very true, because he is across the globe. And he should be here.
How are
There.
we all doing?
Good. How are
We
you,
all
brother?
Good.
a little bit worse for wear, but we won't talk about that.
That's good. That's
I
good.
figured.
Well, we just got started, so it's good to see you. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, however, wherever you are in the world. This is Zack
Yeah,
Brannon.
hello everybody.
This is Zack.
Hello.
He's an amazing musician. If you're just tuning in, go check out his shit.
He is a fantastic guitar player, and I'm going to be asking him all trivial guitar questions, which I can't wait.
Yeah,
Yes,
get
and
it
that is why we brought Dale on, because he's the one that I think we mentioned last time. He's the one that I was like, he's gonna pick your brain if he ever gets to talk to you. So
Oh hell yeah.
it's good that we got him on today.
We have a
Yeah.
whole band now. We have 2 guitar players, a drummer, and a bass player.
Yeah, we can make
And
something
and a singer.
yeah. We're
We'll
getting there.
make him a little bit bigger so that he feels like he's with us.
Oh, that's all right.
There he is.
I don't have an inferior complex or whatever you're trying to say. It's fine. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you guys were talking about.
We were
but,
just talking. We just hopped into talking about his new album that he's about to release in May, on the 4th, I believe you
fantastic.
said, right?
Star Wars Day, yeah.
May the 4th be with you.
Well played. Well played. That is
Represent.
genius.
Full disclosure, I'm releasing it on that date because I know, knowing me and my, cloudy brain, I'll forget my own release date. So I thought May the 4th pretty easy to remember.
It's gonna be like 11 o'clock at night, and you're gonna be like, "Man, oh yeah, man, May the 4th was sick this year. Did I forget to do anything?" You're like, "Shit, I forgot to drop the album."
I feel like
Well, the
I forgot
album's
something to
scheduled.
do.
Yeah, there's something just doesn't feel right. I think there was something important
Yeah,
happening.
you're cuddling your little Grogu or whatever to bed.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
no, that's awesome.
the
Oh,
release is scheduled, but yeah, obviously there's lots of promotion I got to do. But yeah, it's just gonna be there's no merch as of yet. I'm still looking into that, but it's just gonna be a straight up album release with some a couple of videos are gonna be following that very shortly as well.
Wicked.
yeah, that is wicked. That's it's good to see that that you're continuing to pump out epic music too, because like I wanna get you up for a show one day, so we got to figure out how to do that, because that'd be fucking awesome.
That is the next step in my mind. As soon as shows can happen, or even if even if there can be a live stream show in a venue, I would be absolutely over the moon to play this with not programmed drums or my own bass playing. So I'd really enjoy doing that. It's just a matter of putting the band together, booking the venue, and and
Is that
that
something you're planning on doing in the future? Is creating a band for your project?
yeah, because right now it's I guess, for lack of a better term, it's essentially kind of a bedroom project, but it's one it's one that I'm pursuing for as far as I can. Well, as far as I can, really, as far as it'll let me go. Just because it's I guess it's a passion project that I've had going on for a while now, and I kind of want to bring it to the next level, because I feel like I see a lot of bedroom projects that just stay bedroom projects, and there's an album release little promotion, couple videos, but then that's it. It never really goes past that. But I want to take it live.
Well, fantastic, man. Like once I'm back in Canada, if you do it live, I'll come and see you definitely. But one of my favorite bands called Tesseract, they started off as a bedroom project.
Yeah, the modern progressive metal thing. Well, that's what I'm releasing essentially. That's what it is. The Tesseract, Pliny kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We
I know
own
if you play
Sky.
I could be wrong here, and correct me if I am, but I hear quite a lot of Mixolydian in your playing, like of modally. You like playing between the happy and the sad. I was just listening to Redemption before I jumped on, and yeah.
I there's two modes that I kind of err towards, and it's usually Lydian, Mixolydian. And I think it's very common for that genre to kind of lean towards that side, because it's one of those things where you hit the lowest string on your guitar, and then you come up with some Lydian riff, and it's
I do it when I'm practicing all the time. I know it, man. Like I would just hit the drop B on my guitar, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm playing in Mixolydian here. Oh, I might go to Alien.
Yeah.
So no, your playing is really good, man. Like honestly, it's fantastic. And
thank you.
So what, like, if you were say you were gonna like help another guitar player, like progress, what would you say are the 5 key things in your opinion that would help with a guitar player's progression, and what have helped you with your progression as well? Because you are a fairly advanced guitar player.
Well, I think top 5 things. I think the number one thing would be, rhythm can never be
mastered.
Good. It's rhythm is number one for me. Working on your rhythm, you can play tons of notes that are going to sound whack, but if you play them in the right place rhythmically, people will listen to that and go, "Oh, that's interesting," but maybe I kind of like it, So rhythm's number one. That means metronome practice, learning to play not just on the beat, but between the beats and everywhere between that. Playing with rhythmic subdivisions.
And polyrhythms and things like that.
Yeah, rhythmic concepts, because I think that's something that can kind of stagger your improvisation, which is the next thing that I think is really good to get good at, is improvisation. Something that I've always had a huge fascination with is being able to just think of things on the spot and just let it flow out and see what happens. The spontaneity fascinates me, which is, you'd think I'd be in that way, you'd think I'd be more of a jazz musician, right? But
and
I do incorporate some of that stuff into my music. But improvisation's another great thing. Learning to speak, learning phrasing, and studying rhythm a lot can help that flow a lot more. Because rhythm, if your rhythm's not good, it can make you it'll stop your tracks really quick. And then
it will.
And then learning the fretboard, obviously, learning your modes, learning your diatonic modes, and then maybe understanding the concept of passing tones, where you can play notes that are not in the key, but you can articulate it in a way where it lands in a good spot that resolves into a good note, and that allows for a lot of expression. Learning to bend.
I call them passing by notes.
Yeah, passing by notes. And
it's a cheat.
Yeah. And knowing your harmony, transcribing solos, or maybe not transcribing, but just learning them, learning your favorite player. That's a huge one, actually, is learning solos from your favorite players, because that's going to sculpt you into sounding like you.
And that's literally how I learned how to play. And just by
you create your own mannerisms in your playing, which makes you sound like you. Where you hold the pick on the string, how you hold the pick, how much you dig in, how quiet you play some notes, or whether to use the pick at all in this note or that note, or finger pick that, or hammer on, like the possibility.
I'd love to ask you something about picks now.
Well, hold on one sec, because we have a question from the audience, and it's what's on your pedal board?
Okay.
Bran wants to know
My
what's
pedal
on.
board?
Yeah, Bran wants to know what's on your pedal board.
Um, nothing. It's a laptop. But
Are you telling me you don't have any of these?
okay, okay. Well, here's the thing. I will say that anytime, well, back in the good old days when gigs happened, um,
Oh yeah.
my rig was my ideal rig was to shrink it down as small and tiny as I could, small enough where I
Mhm.
could carry the whole thing on the bus, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And basically, what it was is any guitar. Well, at the time, it was my JP7, which you see in all my older content. Um, that was my main guitar, but the pedal board that I was using wasn't even a pedal board. It was two pedals. It's an Ibanez Tube Screamer Mini, and an MXR carbon copy delay. Just because I was playing a lot of fusiony kind of pop trio gigs where it's instrumental, and if you're a trio, you got to fill out space. So, throw on some carbon copy delay. It'll add some space to your sound and it'll sit behind your playing still. So that's like
Mhm.
carbon copy delay is one of those pedals. Everybody needs one.
No, I don't. You know what? I do like it and I appreciate it, but it's the TC flashback for me.
That's
I've
the
got
other.
to.
That's the
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
Everybody like the carbon copy and the flashback are the two like
yeah.
must-have.
The
I
TS9
find
or
with
the
the carbon
808?
copy,
Uh,
mate, it's a TS9 for me.
yeah, I think the little guy that I got, it's like that big. It's tiny. It's Tube Screamer Mini. I think it's modeled after an 808,
Oh yeah.
but
I don't actually need one with my amplifier because it's got a boost circuit built into it. So it's already there. So I just tap it. But it's the boost circuit is modeled off like a clon, but with a little bit of TS9 mixed in there. So it's got its own
oh,
little like unique little flavor. But the question I wanted to ask you is, how much of the pick do you have showing as a guitar player? Because I was criticizing myself this yesterday.
you know
Like if
what?
you
Let
if you
me
hold a pick,
let me grab a.
Yeah, that is a great
Uh,
question. No, that's genuine because I hold my pick really fucking close to the tip, and everyone always makes fun of me for it because I don't hold
well,
them
the,
properly.
yeah.
the way I look at holding a pick is the same way I look at writing, like literally writing my name. If I pull out like a pencil,
Mm.
nobody writes their name like that.
No, no.
I I write my name like that. I want whatever utensil I'm using, whether it's a pen or a pick or a
Mm.
fork for eating. You know, I want that object to be an extension of my hand. So
Mm.
I'm not gonna use like none of the pick, but I am gonna have a little bit sticking out so I can play really fast and it's almost
Oh,
like a
yeah.
thumbnail sticking out of the side of my
Yeah.
hand.
Like I have a millimeter that sticks out just here when I play,
Yeah.
and that's because I don't know if you probably do this as well, but I use this and this part of my finger and my thumb to mute the string as I'm passing up and down.
Oh,
So
really? I
yeah,
actually
and then
don't I don't even know what I use to mute. I mean, sometimes I stick a fret wrap on there because I'm too lazy.
Right? When you actually have to think about your playing at such an in-depth level, it
yeah,
really
yeah.
makes it complicated.
I like to talk to other guitarists about it and like just kind of see where they are and then where I am because everybody's got their own unique twist on it and how they
Yep.
do it, and that's a good thing in my opinion because if you can bring out the most of you in your playing, you'll always stand out because you will always be you. If you get what I mean.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I noticed a lot with Zack's music as well. It's like there's been plenty of this boom of guitar players that are just circulating on their own, making their own projects, but a lot of them just copy the same structure. So I don't know. I just I'm trying to say that you can definitely hear your uniqueness in your guitar playing, Zack.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well,
What
that's the
what
thing. Sorry.
what gauge of picks do you use?
I just use 1 millimeter. I actually use a lot of people use Jazz 3 picks nowadays, and I was
Hell
Mm.
yeah.
I was doing that too. And the last NAMM show I went to, I tried out one of these flow picks, and it was just like, oh my god, this is perfect because it's kind of like a
Mm,
jazz shape, but it's like the size of a regular pick, so it feels really comfortable because I got all this to hang on to, but then I got this
mm.
sharp tip that's gonna do the job. But yeah,
These
it's 1 mil.
these are my favorites.
Yeah, Dale's picks are
They
weird.
are the jazz. Yeah.
What are those?
I don't know. It's not focusing, but yeah, it's the Prodigy. I use either a 1.5 or a 2 mil, and that's because in my attack I don't put any effort into. Obviously I use my wrist, but I let the weight of the pick decide on how loud that string is going to be, and it only takes the slightest movement or force in my arm or my hand to bring out that note more. So I use a really heavy pick.
Yeah, I was using some pretty heavy picks before. I was using about that too, actually. I was using like 1.5 and 2 mil, and I was
Mm.
going even thicker. I think I had a 3 mil at one point.
Oh wow.
Well, I've like I'm kind of a pick nerd. Sometimes I like to collect boutique ones.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know I had these picks from this company called Stone Age, and they're made of agate.
Cool.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah.
and if you try playing with one, they're not overly chirpy because boutique picks can have too much attack sometimes. But these
Mm.
have just the right amount of attack, and they're really really aggressive sounding, and it's nice. It's great for metal. But then I just kind of realized that I like thinner picks a little better because it's got that scrape, but it doesn't feel like I'm holding a big pebble in my hand, which for me personally, I like it when my fingers can be really close together and it feels like the pick's not even there.
Mm-hmm.
I use
But
paper
No,
thin
no,
picks.
like
I can't. I
73
can't.
or 50 mil.
0.46. Yeah, I use like tiny,
Oh
tiny.
wow.
Yeah, like I use paper thin. I find that I can
That
play a lot harder because when I play really hard. And if I use
yeah.
anything thicker, then I'm just snapping strings. So I
Yeah,
find, but then
I,
again, that's when I'm
I've
playing
I've
rhythm.
yeah, I've met a few people like that where they just break so many strings at the saddle because they pick so hard
Hmm.
and they use thick picks. But
I never broken a string with my attack
Maybe not
on
on your
my.
guitar,
I
but
have when I was
you still haven't
learning.
replaced my acoustic string, asshole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's because your acoustic guitar strings have been on there since you brought the bloody thing. So.
Yeah,
Oh, shots
Yeah.
fired.
it's true though.
Shots
It's
are
not even a
fired.
lie.
That's it now. He's done for.
I see that happen a lot because I work in a guitar store where
Mm,
people bring in their instruments, and because of COVID, so many people are starting up playing again. Like they'll take
mm,
a old guitar from their attic or something like that, and they'll bring it in, and it'll be some crappy old like Yamaha with like ludicrously heavy strings on it, and it'll be the
mm.
fingerboard will just be like it looks like it was left out in the rain for a week, and then
I
left.
don't know. I
But
hate new strings. I can't stand new strings.
Yeah, me too.
like too twangy, I guess. Or
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just they're too bright.
yeah.
They're too bright for me. And I use the Dario. The what is it? The I've actually got a pack here. I can't remember the name
NYXL
of
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah, the NYXL ones. And loads of people will probably hate me for this, but I try to leave them on as long as possible. I like it when the strings have been broken into a way, and I think that's because like I don't play very hard. I don't have to like attack very hard. So for me, the brightness is just like I don't like it. I just don't like new strings. I hate the feel of them, and that is such a weird thing because every other guitar player is like, I love the feel of new strings, or anybody that plays a string
I,
instrument.
I do too, but actually I just thought of this. Have you ever tried DR Pure Blues?
No, I have not. No, I must say that.
No, no, me neither.
The DR Pure Blues strings are very much like there's DR tight fits. DR is the company, but they've got all these different kinds of strings, right? Um,
Mm.
Pure Blues, I tried them, and they're very much like you put them on, and they feel like you've been playing them for like a week already.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, okay,
So they're a
that's
lot.
good.
So they're a lot more mellow. There's no. I think it's like all nickel or something.
Yeah,
So
because don't they use brass sometimes to make the outer coating of the string or something like that? Like I
yeah.
can't remember. Yeah, something like I can't
So
remember off the top
so
of my head.
these are like they're full on vintage style strings where it's like all nickel. So the material's
Hmm.
soft. So it's got a softer sound. It's not so bright. So
Okay.
try those because those that I immediately found like I was like, wow, these don't sound super zingy like new strings.
Yeah.
The adjective I know, but they're not so bright. They sound a little warmer and a little more mellow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I am listening. It's just my rhythm guitar player can't access something, and I'm trying to sort it out for him at the same time. So I
Yeah.
do
As
apologize.
I'm ignoring it, looking like an asshole, I'm just like do 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 busy. Sorry, Jake.
Well, as
Yeah.
musicians in the
Sorry,
modern
Jade.
world, we got to multitask a hell of a lot now.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, it's only getting
So
tougher and tougher.
I was trying to take a page out of Dale's book, and I was using the 1 mil uh, picks for my bass playing as well. I like to attack my strings a little heavier, so it was fine for when I was just playing in my living room with my practice amp or whatever. It always sounded great. But then as soon as I went through my big rig, I'd hit my strings and then I could hear this like clapping sound almost, and I was like, "Whoa, what the hell is that?" And I tried a thinner pick and with the same amount of attack, and it went away. Um, I'm wondering if maybe I can get rid of it a little bit with a noise gate pedal or something like that. But yeah,
Mm.
I'm definitely going to err on the side of like a point 0.7, point 0.6 mil pick from now on.
Yeah, I find that tends to happen when the strings actually when they make contact with the magnets of the pickups. So it could also
Mm.
be the pickup height could be too high too, because when the string, if you hit it hard enough, it'll vibrate so much that it'll just rattle against the pickup a little bit.
Yeah,
That can make for a really nasty, just pop sound that's just really not great.
yeah. And sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you try to be composed when you're playing, but
It's hard. It's
sometimes
hard.
it goes away.
Fucking impossible, bro.
There's been so many instances where I'm in the heat of the moment in like a stage setting, and I'm trying to do something that's like a fast alternate pick line,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just so stiff and tense when I'm trying to do it.
Right.
So what in my head is gonna sound, like really nice and clean and fluid. It's just like it's just a bunch of noise.
You're like, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, my dreams have just been crushed. So now
No.
I use way more legato to do everything because that never gets in the way.
Right.
Right?
No, it's cool to
Always
hear.
sounds smooth.
Yeah, it's always cool to hear how other players, their techniques and their like the weird little things that you learn as a guitar player. Like there's so many different little things that people do differently than everybody else. You know what I mean? And I think
Oh yeah,
that's what I think what makes musicians appreciate other musicians is like, damn, how the
Mm.
fuck did he do that? Because what made me want to learn how to play guitar was the moment I heard a pinch harmonic. Like that Zack Wild fucking
yeah.
pinch harmonic, dude. I was hooked. I needed to learn how to do it, and from that moment on, it was like needed to progress, needed to progress, needed to progress. So it's just it takes that one little thing that little technique that you
Mm.
always want to learn that gets you going. And then all of a sudden you're learning sweep picking and like all these other techniques, and then all of a sudden you get drawn into theory, like Norm did. Like he met Dale, and all of a sudden he was just absorbed with theory for like he's still. I think you're doing courses now for theory, so it's like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
it's not just like picking up
To
an
be fair, I'm
instrument.
not the type of person. I like to bombard people with the information that I've learned because I know the struggle. It's not easy, when you're teaching yourself anyway.
Yeah.
Because I never had any tuition. I always had to teach myself. And over the years, like the things I've learned through various courses or whatever, and I see other guitar players or other musicians and they're struggling and they get down. It's like you always hit those walls and then you've got to slowly just like get past them. And yeah, I just wanted to help Norman, and I think I've helped him out a bit. I mean,
Oh,
he's a fantastic bass player. So
light years.
Yeah.
Well, theory
Nah.
is such an awesome tool to have, especially and the fun thing about learning it is like starting to learn it's a pain in the ass. But once
Mm,
you start to get farther into it, the more you realize everything overlaps and you learn that things are
mm,
synonymous with each other. And it's like, oh, that just means that. And this chord is all
mm,
this chord if you go a third up and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of fun when you realize everything's interconnected
Yeah.
and things aren't actually as complicated as you think. I mean, there's only 12 notes in Western music, you know.
Yeah, and that's like one thing that's always kind of like confused me is the concept of Western music versus Eastern music. You know what I mean? Like, I'm personally obsessed with Eastern music because they don't.
Microphones.
Yeah, dude, like that to me is just like it's so gorgeous when you hear Middle Eastern music and they're singing and you're just like, even the notes, the music, it's just like I don't know, it's next level. Like it's so beautiful.
Well, that's the thing too is in using a lot of different instruments, you can get all these timbral things that you
Mm-hmm.
can't get with common instruments like the guitar. You know, an instrument that I'm yet to sort of look more into, but I've heard it in some music and I think it sounds really cool. I think it's called the Santur or something.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's like you lay it down this way, and it's a stringed instrument,
Yeah.
but for every note you're playing, it's kind of like the auto harp. I think if you've seen one of those,
mm.
Yeah.
but every it's like a piano also, where every it's like a million instruments as far as I
Mm-hmm.
should. Uh,
It's like a stringed accordion almost.
it's like all of these, but it's in a piano way. It's like every note has three strings that are tuned exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So every note
Mm,
you play is super rich. It sounds like there's three of you doing it, and it's got a lot of top end, and it's very it just cuts through really nice. It's like it's really good in a mix, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's just got a really unique sound that I've really grown to. Well, not grown to. I liked
mm,
it immediately when I heard it. Um, but yeah, there's all kinds of timbral differences you can get with trying different instruments. I mean, I'm also looking into maybe getting like some dulcimer in some of my
Right.
stuff.
I'm learning how to do didgeridoo. That's one of the instruments I'm learning right now because I think as a vocalist, being able to just like toss that with some effects and shit would be so cool.
Oh,
Like
oh,
Xavier Rudd,
oh,
didgeridoo.
like Xavier Rudd is so cool. The way he does things because he's like a single artist. He plays didgeridoo while playing drums and singing, and it's just like
Oh,
mm,
There's a
it's artists like that that inspire me to try different things. You know what I mean? I'm like, fuck it, it may be metal, but like, why? Who says I can't put a didgeridoo in? Dale showed me what band was it
mm.
that's from New
yeah,
Zealand? The
Austra-
the New
yeah,
Zealand
it's
band.
Australian or
Um,
it is.
Well, I don't know. Have you ever heard of a band called
Alien
Bloodywood or
Weaponry.
Bollywood?
That's what it is. Alien
Oh,
Weaponry.
Alien Weaponry, yeah,
Like
yeah. And then you've got the
they put like Maori influence in, so they sing in like the tongue, and they actually put like hawkas in their
mm,
music, and it's like, damn, dude, shit sounds so cool. So I mean, like,
mm,
I think North American metal, we've created, it's slowly building, but I think the more influences we take from other cultures and other instruments and put that in our music, I think that shit would make it so much more acceptable and like tasteful. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe
that's
just me.
that's what I love about progressive metal too, is because this genre provides such a great blank canvas for so much stuff to be thrown in with it.
Yeah.
And I find
mm,
that a lot of progressive music, I mean, maybe that's why it's called progressive metal, because there's this there's this idea behind it where it's like throw in anything. You know, it started with progressive rock in like the 60s and 70s, and it's like, oh, let's play some heavy riffs but stick some saxophone in there,
Yeah.
you know?
mm,
And you know, let's get some keyboards in there. Hell, let's get some violin if you're going like the Mahavishnu Orchestra kind of sound. And there's so much stuff you can throw into it, you know. And we've got
sure.
all these subgenres. We have pirate metal now, you
Yep.
know.
So one of my favorite riffs to play is Ailstorm, Wenches in the East.
Hailstorm.
Oh,
Right?
I
Like,
remember learning that with my friend.
and I mean, realistically, it's music. There is no
Yeah,
limits to what you can do with it. And that's what I think drives me nuts about the whole concept of genres is you're just putting a classification on it. You're putting a box around what you do. Like who says you can't
That's
add
that
an
term.
right? Who says you can't add accordion to metal? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm.
Like why not? That is
I think
dope.
my I think my first experience with that was there's this band called the Real Mackenzies, and I remember hearing them back when I was like 13 or something, and I
Mhm.
was watching like watching like Much More Music or something, and they came on and they're doing this punk stuff, but it's got bagpipes in it, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like Celtic punk or
Dude,
something.
that's
It's
why I
just
love
like
punk.
that is like one of the
Like
sickest things I've ever
Flogging
heard.
Molly is one
Celtic.
of my favorite bands just because they're so fucking badass. You know, it's just it
Yeah,
brings out my Irish, like the Irish in me just comes out and I'm like, yeah. So like I love that shit. It gets me going.
Mm.
And I love that.
yeah,
I love when I hear like bands that use other instruments. Like I have a buddy who plays sitar, and like when you hear him play in a band, when they've got like heavy distortion going, and he's just got this beautiful sitar riff going, you're just like, man, this is like completely
Mm.
different than anything else. So I think that's
yeah.
what I think learning other instruments is also really good. Like it's good to learn as many different instruments and as much theory as possible if you're a musician
Mm.
because
I've got to say I'm really bad with that. Like I've not diversified because not because I don't want to or I don't want to put in the time to learn another instrument. It's just to do with the fact that I feel like there's always something new to learn on my guitar.
mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
always a hurdle. Well, I would say hurdle, but like there's always an obstacle or like like a challenge that I have to do on my guitar, and I've always got to try and get over that. I think I was saying it to Norman, like one of my favorite players, Rob Chapman. It was like it's like pounding a wall like that, right? And you slowly just bring it up, bring it up, bring it up, and bring it up. You're always hitting that wall like that to get to the level that you want to get to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's it. Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, you do it
So
with
no,
every instrument that once you start to, you know,
mm,
you fall in love with an instrument, you're automatically gonna try and learn everything you can. You know, but it's a lot
yeah,
easier when it's stringed instruments. Like if you're going from like guitar to bass or bass to or guitar to mandolin or guitar to ukulele or
mm,
like I find the only one that's really hard to do for stringed instruments is when you start getting into bowed instruments like violins and cellos. Like that's where I get lost because I
the
don't
only other
understand the
instrument I want to
pressure.
learn is a banjo.
I love banjos,
I
dude.
want to
They're
learn to
so
play
fun.
banjo.
Man,
I want to learn to play banjo so bad.
I got one. They're so fun to play. Like I've got so many random ass instruments that I just like. I don't know. It makes it so fun. Like I've got a mandolin, a ukulele, a didgeridoo, like
Mm,
anything you could think of, I've
Man,
pretty much got. It's funny.
banjos can sound heavy too.
Goddamn right they can.
yeah.
Banjos are the shit, dude. I don't know if you've ever seen like the world's fastest banjo player, but it'll blow any guitar player out of the water. They are so fucking quick with
Mm.
their fingers, dude, and I don't understand it. Like shout out to Rob
I
because Rob plays banjo like a god. I love that guy.
banjo's pretty articulate because you got finger picks
Yep,
as opposed to one
Mm,
pick. It's like you've got multiple hands picking for you,
I
right?
know, and that's what I mean, right?
You can play chordal stuff and you can execute stuff really fast because on top of that, banjo necks are so thin, so you can get around
mm.
the thing really quick.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like they're super
And the
fun.
strings are really thin too, so you don't have to press very hard. It's like having super low action almost.
I think they're called Steven Seagulls or something like that.
Have you ever played size 7 strings?
I never
Like,
have. I've played eighth
yeah.
before, and it's like playing rubber bands. Like I don't get me wrong, I like when the guitar doesn't fight at all. Uh,
Mm.
I play with currently I'm playing with nines. I'm playing with tens, but then I got a ton of nines for my birthday, so
Mm.
so I switched back to nines. But yeah, size 7 strings would be just way too trebly.
I drop B. I drop B nines. I use nines. I used to use nines all the time in drop B.
Did you have like a longer scale length or?
No, it's a traditional like Fender sort of scale length. It's not baritone or anything like that. It's just my guitar is set up in such a way for me because I spend when I first buy a guitar and I get it, I spend the whole day when I've got that guitar setting it up because I have a really weird um it's a really weird way that I play, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's to do with the fact that I've got nerve damage in my left arm. So yeah, I have to use really light strings because of that. I can't use heavier strings. And but Norman, bless him, made me go up to tens, and now I'm thinking about going up to 11s because I used to play 13s when I first started.
All,
So
all
How did
over.
I do anything there?
because I remember you saying to me right, when we were in the recording studio, yeah, like, oh, have you put new strings on it? And I was like, yeah, I put new strings on it. I've also gone up a gauge, and you were there like, that was a good idea. Like,
Dude, I know you don't like the new strings, but they sound fucking crazy.
I know, but I fucking hate them.
Have you guys ever seen Rick Beato does a really good video on string gauge comparison as far as tone goes, and I
Mm,
didn't think it made that big of a difference, but it makes a humongous difference.
Yep.
mm,
Especially when you're playing on high. Well, no, on all the strings really. You get a lot more. You get a lot more, I guess, harmonic overtones and richness when you play with heavier strings. But when you play with lighter strings, you have a lot more clarity and a lot more. You have much tighter bottom end, way
Mm-hmm.
tighter
mm,
bottom end. It's like the difference between playing with 11s. If you're doing chugging on some 11s, it sounds like, 11s are kind of woofy, and then you throw some like nines on there and you're playing on like the 42. It almost sounds like you just like stuck a tube screamer in front of it and tightened up the sound
mm.
clarity, and it's just like, wow,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a world of difference.
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
funny because
I
that's
find,
like
yeah, with the small things, especially with the drops, like it is different. You're not supposed to
Yeah,
do it
I
though, are you?
prefer
You're meant to go
lighter.
heavier when you drop to.
I know, well, a lot of people do that, and something I noticed, I was actually, when I was recording the title track of my upcoming album, Black Skies and Searchlights, there's this, I was using my 7 string on it, and I had like a 60 as like the low B, and I was dropped down to low A.
Right.
And I noticed there was a lot of like flubbiness and rattling with the bigger string.
Mm,
I dropped it down to like a 56 or something like that, like quite a bit. And it
mm,
immediately, I had way more clarity. It was a lot floppier, which was annoying, but if I could deal with
mm,
it and learn to adjust to it, I actually got a much clearer, more cohesive sound rather than having this overwhelming
mm,
amount of like, 250 hertz that's just like poking out on the graphic equalizer.
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
But
also
Okay.
find that
What
when you tune down with the lighter strings, I don't know if it's just for bass, but it was like it was really floppy and flabby for a little bit, and now when I play like for example like extra light gauge or light gauge bass strings in drop B, um I don't notice that they're loose anymore.
yeah, well, I guess because you learn to adjust, and I noticed the difference also on bass guitar. Um,
Hmm.
when I was recording the same track I was just talking about on bass, I was playing the bass on it, and I was using the low B string, and I was using the stock strings that the bass came with because I had just purchased it,
Yeah.
and they were medium gauge,
Okay.
5 string bass strings. And I was like, man, this just doesn't sound right. It's so rattly. There's not a lot of clarity. I'm like, is there something wrong with the
mm,
bass? I'm like, hey, you know what? It's probably the strings. So I dropped it down to light gauge, and it immediately killed all that rattly flubbiness, and it sounded like a ding wall. It gave me that nice
mm,
piano like sound that has that nice twang when you're going for a brighter sound, and it reacted to the distortion way nicer. I mean, maybe it's just because they were new strings, but it was very much more clarity with the lighter gauge. So it's kind of like, to me, it's almost like you want to go with, well, if you're playing metal, I feel like you want to go with the lightest gauge possible without the strings flapping around too much.
Hmm. What kind of bass
yeah.
do you play?
For on bass?
Yeah. What kind of bass?
I've got this.
I saw it before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this.
Norman's just eyeing up the bass guitar in the background.
It's this Sire Marcus Miller bass I got for about $1,000. It's basically a J bass.
Jeez,
Oh, I see.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's
It's
fucking
like a
beautiful.
It's like well, it sounds great. It's basically a Fender J bass. Sounds just like one. Plays just like one. It's got like a rolled fingerboard, which is pretty nice. But anyways, it's what I use to track bass for the entire album, and it's a great sounding instrument. But it came with too big of strings. The strings were too big on it for what I wanted to do with it. It didn't have that. It didn't have that Victor Wooten twang that I wanted.
I love all the terminology that I'm collecting for this for something. It's just really, it's so entertaining for me. Like the shit when you get a bunch of musicians sitting together and we're all talking about music, and you know a lot of that bump 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 bump, like we say the stupidest shit, and it's all just random fucking noises. So anybody who's not a musician watches it, yeah. But anyone who watches it that's not a musician, they're like, are these guys stroking out? Like, what's going on here, man?
What's a Victor Wooten?
Right?
I gotta admit, like that's how Sleeping Flame started. That's how that riff started.
Right? It's
yeah.
so entertaining listening to musicians talk to each other about that stuff because it's I want to make like a whole show about it. It'd be funny.
Yeah, just a montage of different terminology being thrown around. Like
it's a bit twangy.
Like,
it was flubby. It was fucking the whole thing was flubby. Like just I love it because it's like we understand what it means. Like we hear that word and we're like, oh yeah, totally. But like, how do you describe a sound as flubby to somebody? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we visualize it.
Well, yeah, and we associate it with certain, like, the word flubby makes you think of some big thing that's.
Well, I just imagine like something like that,
right? Just makes me think of dun 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 dun.
Tube is very flubby.
Right?
But it's funny. I remember in high school, I was playing guitar with my friend, and we were talking about guitar tone, I guess, and I was talking about how, like, I was trying to describe a tone to him, and I'm like, yeah, it's like really warm and really fat sounding, and he's just like, I don't know what are you talking about? What is warm
mean?
And fat?
But we totally get it. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, even like the word boxy, like this guitar tone's very boxy.
Yeah,
it's like, what does that mean?
You gotta open that box up.
See, you say boxy to me, and I think of like a 1x12 little combo amplifier that is breaking up quicker than it should do. That's what I think boxy means. It is because
I feel like it's like stuck in this thing. Like it doesn't project as well as it should. It's stuck. That's what I hear when I.
Well, if you look at like old valve amplifiers and stuff like that, so like your boutique ones, they used to just do these like little 1x12, like a Fender, like that kind of like a Fender Tweed or something like that. And they used to put 1x12s in them, and then they would crank them, and then the speaker would distort quicker naturally. So they call it like a boxy speaker. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Oh,
yeah.
I usually find the term boxy is associated with. I don't know why, but it's often associated with having too many mids in like the 1K range. Too much mids in the 1K and too much low mids in like 250 or something, 250 hertz. So you get this like woofiness in the bottom end that's not very tight sounding, and then you get this like poke out of 1,000 hertz that just makes it really like it sounds like a duck honking or something. Honky. That's another term.
Yeah, honky. It's important though. The mid range, for anybody that is a guitar player, the mid range is the most important part of any guitar signal or sound. But don't overdo it. You've got to balance it out. It's always a balancing act.
I used to have a terrible habit of having too many mids in my sound because I'm like, I want it to cut through.
I've always honestly stuck to James Hetfield's as much as I'm not a Metallica fan, I've always stuck to James Hetfield's setup, which is like 80% bass, 50% mid, and then he has high end. And that's just how he usually like his setup was for a while, and that's how I've always fell in love with that sound.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you got.
See, I go on,
Sorry.
Zach. Sorry.
You've got, you got the high end to pick up your pick attack. You got the mid range to adjust how much you want it to come forward in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm not really a mixing engineer. And then you got your low end to add weight along with the bass guitar and the kick.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I find if you have like, I find some sounds are like too bassy and mid. You know what I mean? And they don't have enough high end. And then when you have too
Yeah.
much high end, it's just like you're piercing. So it's really, I think tone is extremely overlooked for some things. Like,
Well, it's funny. I usually go for I always go for a mellower sound. I kind of try and see how little top end I can get away with in my guitar tone, just because I love Eric Johnson's guitar tone so
mm-hmm.
much. I think
Mm.
that's like I think that's definitely one of my favorites. Because I don't know, I used to love top end, but now it's like I just really like when it's like warm and really mellow sounding, but it's still got that attack in the right
In the
frequency.
right places.
Yeah.
And
I've had the same settings since I was probably around about 14, 15. I've had the same settings on my guitar.
Yeah. I've slowly
what
changed mine
amp
over
are
the
you?
years.
I use a Laney ITR. I've got an Ironheart. But
Oh,
then I've had everything from a Marshall GCM 800 to like Mesa Boogies and stuff like that. I was quite fortunate being in the UK. There was which is where I live. There's a massive studio down here, and you could rent out a rehearsal room, and for an extra $10, it would let you use an amp. So every time I would go down to that rehearsal room, I would try different amplifiers, and then eventually I could afford to buy my own, and then I just brought myself my GCM 800, which I sold for a new computer because I've got the amp of my dreams, which is a Laney Ironheart, so I'm happy with that. But with valve amps, it's important about the tubes, which combination of tubes you use, because if you want more of a British sounding amplifier, you'll use EL34s. If you want more of an American sound, like your PV 5150s, and what else is there? Like a Mesa Boogie, Friedman, they'll use 606 power section amps, and it's important to know that because they actually change the voicing of the amplifier slightly.
oh yeah.
So, yeah, having an EL34 will actually increase the low end in the actual how the dynamic of the amp responds, and a 606 will actually do more of it'll have more of like a mid punch, but in like the higher end mids, so not more along the lines of 220 kilohertz, like the 2000 range. That's a
Oh
bit more
yeah.
of a cool. I spent so much of my time like realizing and figuring out how amplifiers work, and yeah, I don't know. That's another thing about being a musician as well. You can turn into a gear nerd. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
big time. It's a
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Every
I
aspect of it.
actually have to leave in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries, bro.
Okay.
Is there any?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, do you want to give another let us know and everybody who just maybe popped in about your album, and then I'll do some shout outs before we head out.
Yeah, so I've got my debut album, Black Skies and Searchlights. It's dropping May 4th, Star Wars Day. And
You haven't got any excuses. Everyone can remember
no
that day.
excuses for me to forget. It's an 8-track album. It's loaded with all kinds of different influences. If you like Pliny, if you like intervals, if you like animals as leaders, there's a little bit of that. I got one song that's got some thumping in it. Never thought I'd end up doing that because
So fun.
I don't consider myself very good at that technique, but I found a way to shoehorn it into a song, which
Nice.
is the ideal way to do it. But I think it sounds good. Anyways, so yeah, 8 tracks, lots of diversity and the moods. It's somewhat eclectic. Some 7-string stuff, some drop C sharp stuff, lots of different influences. Anyways, and it's going to be available on all platforms May 4th.
Hell yeah.
May the force be with you.
That's awesome. I'm so stoked because I
Along,
genuinely love your stuff because it's fucking. You just get lost in it. You know what I mean? You like it's something you can just put on and just like half an hour later you're like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? That was amazing. I want to hit play again. So definitely
the
go
album,
check it out.
the
Yeah,
album,
everyone go check out Zack's stuff. Honestly, he's a fantastic, very talented guitar player and musician all around. So everybody just go support him. Just do it. Don't ask questions. I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait until it's released, Zack, because then I want to listen to it. Because I will start to break down your guitar playing as one guitarist to another.
add me on Facebook if you have
I
stuff.
will. Yeah, for sure, man. 100%. But yeah, I can't wait till the album is dropped, man. I'm looking forward to listening to it.
I'm just excited.
Good man.
I'll finally have a body of work to show.
Mm.
Right now, it's just I got a couple EPs and a few singles, and it's
Yeah.
it's something, but you
Yeah,
always got more.
we know how that feels.
Yeah.
I got another EP. Okay, now I got a single. Okay, now I got another EP.
It's
By
even
that time,
more
you're gonna release
frustrating.
an album.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when you've got content but you can't release it.
Yeah.
All right.
You're
So
just like, why?
everyone who's watching, we do have 2 more live interviews tomorrow. 5 o'clock with October Roar and 6 o'clock with Pistol Grip Suicide. Cynical Sons just dropped their new latest single, but the pre-save, so go pre-save that shit. And go check out Norman's fucking review page, because he's got some reviews for you people.
Out of the Norm reviews. Check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Awesome, Zach.
He
Well,
is
thanks for
out of the
coming on,
norm.
bro. It was good having you again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zack. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Really good talking to you today, bud.
Yeah, you too, guys. All right. Thank you. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, good luck.
Take care, man.
So-
Bye-bye.
Bye, dude.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.